Hi, this is Dan Henk. Welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today my guest is Paul. How do you say your last name, Paul?
Lubaczewski.
Okay, Lucia. I would have totally butchered that, so I'm glad to hear you say it.
I would say the vast majority of people butcher it. I can usually tell when they're calling me for something at a doctor's office. When it goes, Paul, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I have a client and he has like a complex Polish first name. So he's like, just call me Matt. But his real name is like Matthias or something. But it's like everybody gets it wrong. Just call me Matt.
Yeah, it's like I said. As soon as I can hear that hesitation in the receptionist's voice. I know who they're calling.
Uh, it's probably spam. I don't know. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of spam. All right, man. So, what do you got going on? What do you have out?
Well, out I got a bunch of stuff, but coming up from D&T this month is Curse of the Werepoodle. Um, Art is done by the absolutely awesome Arturo Fuentes, ARF, LA artist. He's done a ton of stuff. He did the cover. I just got to see it today, and it looks completely rad. And horror comedy is generally what I'm known for. I do write horror. As a matter of fact, I got a collection coming up um, in the beginning of next year from St. Rooster called Droplets. But horror comedy is generally what I'm known for.
Do you watch horror comedy movies? Like everything from like Shaun of the Dead to like Rubber, Black Sheep?
I go even further than that. I get into Gucci like Zombie Ass, Dead Sushi, and
I've never seen Dead Sushi. I don't know if
oh,
I should. I'm not a
it's
huge fan of horror
magnificent.
comedy.
It is magnificently chaotic and just over the top. It takes everything that Trauma does and just goes, I can do better. I
Well,
can out
I,
trauma and he does.
I find out. Well, I've known a lot of people that work for Trauma. Apparently, Trauma didn't pay real well, but it helps you get started in the business. A lot of people do it, but I don't know. Horror comedy is kind of hit or miss. Like if you pull it off, even though it's a ridiculous concept, it's still a good movie. Like Black Sheep. I love Black Sheep, but like Rubber, I just like really a killer tire.
Rubber didn't quite do it for me. I mean, horror comedy has like been in horror as long as there's been horror. I mean,
Right.
especially in film. Like if you look at like George Méliès, who's like considered like the guy who made the very first horror films, he also heavily laden it with jokes. I mean, there's some great jokes in like the original Dracula has got a wonderful bit where like the one guard and the housekeeper is outside. And it's like they're crazy. They're all crazy except you and me. And sometimes I have me doubts about you. And she just looks at him and goes, yes. And it's just like it's wonderful.
Well, one of my favorite movies of all time for a long time, it was my favorite movie is Evil Dead. I have that tattoo on my knuckles, and that's obviously comedy. It's like a mix of like horror and comedy. Like Ash like chops off his hand that gets possessed and he traps it in a bucket and on top of it he puts a book of Farewell to Arms.
Yeah, those are horror comedy. I mean, you tend to think of Polanski as doing like really, really dark, really intense horror, but Fearless Vampire Killers is an absolute classic. It's like one of my favorite films ever. Matter of fact, like my entire stairwell is taken up with. I have a Belgian theater poster from it, and it's just this massive, massive original poster, and that's pretty much on my stairwell.
So awesome. So my whole house, by the way, is decorated. Like I don't understand when people have like apartments or workplaces and there's blank walls everywhere. I'm like, I need the inspiration. I feel, but that's kind of off topic. All right, so what you have out right now is it like in pre-production? Is it out? How can people get a hold of it? How can people see it?
Well, Curse comes out first on Godless on the 15th, and then it'll be available everywhere at the end of the month. The last book out was Like a Ton of Bricks. That came out from St. Rooster. That's, again, pretty much so out everywhere. Like Barnes and Noble carries it, Books a Million, pretty much. So indie bound, so any indie bookstore can at least order it in. And of course, there's the Borg, Amazon. I shouldn't
The
talk.
boring.
I shouldn't talk bad about them, otherwise I'll start banning my books.
Or maybe they'll send a drone and that's it.
What'd you have to say about Jeff Bezos? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nothing, Overlord. Nothing. Yeah. But so is there a format that you prefer horror comedy in, like novel type, or like comic book, or like movie or TV series?
Well, I like it in film, like if it's done right. Again, that's a big caveat. Like I love a film like Zombie Ash just because again it's like so over the top. It's hilarious just because there are no rules. Like in Iguchi's world, there's no rules. If it's funny, he's going to do it. And at the same time, like Shaun of the Dead's a relatively smarter film.
Right.
And then like you can even go back to like Young Frankenstein, which is it's so lovingly done. I mean, that's what makes it work so well. Is it's so lovingly done. You could tell that Mel Brooks himself and Gene Wilder loved Bride of Frankenstein. Like they must have watched that film a billion times to just get the feel right, get where the jokes would be based off of the film. To look at the film and go, you know what? Wouldn't it be funny if? And like have
Right.
seen it that many times. And that's like the one thing I always tell people. It's like to really write horror comedy, you better love both because you're either
Right.
going to come off as you're making fun of horror, and that's going to piss off like all the horror fans, or the jokes are just going to lame, flat, and they're just not going to land. I mean, in books, Christopher Moore is great. Jeff Strand, actually, I often say Strand is the only guy I know who can write slapstick.
Been listed stories from my compilation. He's an awesome guy. Like I see him at conventions all the time, and I just got the rights back to my first few books. He helped me do that. So yeah, he's a really nice guy, but he's really funny.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like normally if I read slapstick, it falls flat because it's such a visual format. It's like you got to see the guy fall down for it to be
Right.
funny. It's like the way he stumbles. And Jeff can write slapstick in a way that actually lands, which is, I mean, that's almost an impossible feat. I've seen a lot of people try it, and it almost always lands flatter than a pancake. But like, you read like something like Wolf Hunt, that's a hilarious book. That's a great piece of writing. And he also did the wrote the introduction for my novel I Never Eat Cheesesteak, which set in my hometown of Philadelphia.
Awesome. Awesome. That's where you live, Philly?
Well, that's where I'm originally from. I
Okay.
live I live in West Virginia now. It's really pretty here, and if you like going outdoors, it's Mother Nature's Disneyland. I mean, we've
Ha-
got
Have you heard the
caving.
joke? How do you do a mating call in West Virginia?
Mm, have not heard that one.
You shake a bottle of pills.
Actually, joke. We've got this one Burger King near here that I call the bad life decisions Burger King, where it's like everybody's in there just mad and miserable, and you can tell it's like life was supposed to be totally different, and then meth. And I
Bump,
often,
bump, bump, and meth. Steep drop off. Yeah.
yeah, it's like everything was going well until meth.
Right.
But like, I just had surgery recently on my knee, and I've got like some leftover over pills, and I'm just like, I should just shake the bottle, throw it in the back, and watch them fight.
Well, I went through a brain cancer, so I went through radiation and chemotherapy and all this stuff, and they were offering me a ton of medication. And at the time, I was like very much like, I'm not gonna take anything, but I should have because I could sell that shit. You know, I could be wealthy off of Uncle Sam. But all right, so let's get back to what you have going on. So do you have a website to promote this, or do you have like an Amazon author page? Do you do
Uh,
social media?
Amazon author page. I have my own website. I'm on Facebook, both just personally, and I've got like two different author pages, and there's a reason for that. I had
You
my
have 200 altar pages on Amazon?
no on Facebook,
Okay.
and there's a reason for that. I had an old profile, and that's what I set up the author page on. And Facebook was having one of its nuking people festivals and nuked that profile. So I had to set up another one, and then they gave me the rights back to my original page. So now I have two.
What, they banned it? They said it was offensive or something?
Well, they banned my personal page, generally for making fun of Nazis.
Uh, you would think that that would be something they can support. I don't know. That people are strange. Like we did, like I own a tattoo shop, and we did like like a hiring post, and like we had some like conditions, and one of the conditions is like don't be weird, and they banned us for that because we're being like offensive to weird people.
Okay, I didn't know that was a constituent.
Apparently, I didn't either, but apparently it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm speaking of tattoos, man. I cannot wait 8 more days. I'm getting my Godzilla tattoo.
Oh,
It's
awesome! I've done a bunch of Godzillas. What are you getting?
I'm getting the poster for Godzilla versus King Ghidorah,
Oh,
'91
nice.
film.
Where are you getting it?
Smoking Guns in Beckley, West Virginia. Very, very good shop.
Okay, but where in your body are you getting it?
Oh yeah, my upper arm. I got like I was a punk rock street kid back in the '80s, so I got a bunch of garbage tattoos because nobody was supposed to live to now.
I was a punk rock street kid, like in the late '80s, early '90s. I was like homeless, living in the woods for a while. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I was like, you
Yeah,
didn't
I
expect
never thought I'd make it this to this age.
yeah, nobody was expecting me to be alive at this point. So like now I've got these garbage tattoos. And I'm like, you know what? I have a future. I have a life. I'm gonna cover that crap up.
Yeah. One of my first tattoos ever is I got a black flag tattoo.
I always avoided the bars. Avoided the bars just because you know what? Any band like and it's come out like like bands like I absolutely loved and like now like I look at it like lead singer's a douchebag and it's like
Right,
oh
right.
my god I don't have that tattooed on me. Oh thank God
Yeah,
Almighty.
but Black Flag had like what, five lead singers, like Keith Morris, Jazz Candina, like Henry Rollins. Actually, I think Henry Rollins was the worst. Like I like all their stuff, their early stuff better.
I have a lot of early '80s LA friends like that were around the early '80s when Rollins got hired and boy they can talk some shit about Rollins and what he did to Flag.
Yeah,
But I think a lot of it was honestly Dukowski leaving.
yeah.
I
I
think
I
like
thought his voice. I thought he was great. I thought a lot of that early Black Flag lineup was like they were way more hardcore. Was great, and when they tried to become like the punk version of Black Sabbath or whatever, that's when they went off the rails.
aggressive jazz.
Yeah.
But like yeah, it's like when Duke was in the band, I think he had a strong enough personality to keep like Greg kind of in check. And
Right.
then when he left, like Greg's like, "Oh, jazz noodlings for an entire album's worth and with no vocals? I'm gonna do it and call it Black Flag. Please God, don't do that."
I
Like I
just
still
gotta pretend like they died. Like they released My War. I liked one song of that, and then that was it.
it's like I remember when Process of Weeding Out came out.
Yeah, what was the point of that album? That's the worst fucking album. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh my God, like my drummer at the time got it. And we're like, oh my God, new flag, new flag. And put it on. It's like, oh my God, this sucks. This sucks so fucking bad.
And then I remember SAT kept putting out stuff, and it was like I want to listen to it because it's on like an indie punk label, but some of that stuff is just like, again, it was like the process of weeding out, it's just like guitar noodling. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
You can actually like watch the kind of the fall of SST between two compilations. Listen to Blasting Concept 1 versus Blasting Concept 2, and it's a totally different vibe. It's like some people discovered drugs around the SST shop, and you can tell.
Right, right. Wait, what happened to that old like I think it's Malcolm McLaren, Sex Pistols statement where he's like, what looks good on hippies? Fire. But all
But
right, so let's not talk about punk rock all day because we'll be here all day. So what else have you got going on? What are you working on? Do you have like do you work on just novels? Do you work on like comic books, graphic novels? Just
Um,
like
just put out
screenwriting?
just did an anthology this past year on St. Rooster, Razor Blades and the Fun Size Candy. And for the record, that's can be nominated for both Stoker and Splatterpunk. It's that time of year, so you got to get that in there.
KillerCon, KillerCon. Yeah, I do KillerCon every year. I did SuperCon last year because it was like locals in Pittsburgh, which is a 9-hour drive. This year it's in San Diego, so I'm like, I'm not making it.
No, I mean either. Not to San Diego. No, 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 no.
And
But yeah,
I'm not a fan of California, so yeah.
I like LA, but even then, I don't know if I'd want to travel. Like to get books out, to get me out, to get to into the con, like the whole thing. It's like by the time you're done, there's just no way you can get back what you put in.
Right.
It's just not possible. But yeah, the anthology, it's got Jeff Strands in it, Bridget Nelson, John Wayne Communal, R.J. Benetti, Nicholas Kaufman. It's just Michael Allen Rose. It's a really great lineup, and it's horror comedy, but it's horror comedy. It kind of goes everywhere.
Is it
Like
kind of like it's an anthology and all those stories are kind of horror comedy?
yeah, kind of in like some of them are like the splatterpunk end of horror comedy, like the definitely John Wayne Communals. John Baldesberger dropped a great story for it, and it's funny because John like whined the entire time, "Don't ever make me write horror comedy again. This sucks. I'm so stressed out. I'm so stressed out." And he hands it in. It's like, well, if you're gonna do a really great job like that, of course I'm gonna ask you again. For God's sakes, like
What's
punt
that
the
called?
job.
What's the
Uh,
anthology?
Razor Blades and the Fun Size Candy.
Okay, and is it available everywhere? Like you can find it on
Yeah,
Amazon and
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
quote find bookstores everywhere. Like yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. It's
Although there are almost no bookstores left. There's like what is there? Like Barnes and Nobles and I don't know what else there is. Like local
well,
bookstores.
well. That's actually the cool thing. Like in this area here is like we've got a bunch of cool little local bookstores.
Right.
Yeah, it's like yeah, there's a Barnes and Noble in Christiansburg, and there's a couple of Books a Millions, but there's also like another Storybooks is out in Lewisburg. There's Blacksburg Books in Blacksburg. Locally, we've got the Hatters, which carry local authors. There's some great ones up in Charleston. So it's like this. I think because Barnes and Noble isn't really in West Virginia, it kind of opened up the door for like a lot of little indie shops to fill
Okay.
that gap. And
Are
that's
they
cool
like
around here.
indie bookstores? Are they like
Yeah.
indie used bookstores? Are they indie like comic shops and bookshops? Like
Um, well, there's the one in Charleston and the one in Lewisburg are both bookstores. They're new bookstores. The one in Blacksburg and the one in Princeton, the Hatters is they're both used bookstores that carry new books. Um, so we get a bunch of everything. Like I said, I think it's just Barnes and Noble had never really taken root here, and it just opened up the door for indie shops to fill that void, and they're doing pretty well. And I especially after Barnes and Noble just made their new announcement about not carrying anything
I
that's
didn't
print
hear
on
about
demand.
that.
They're not carrying anything
Really?
that's print on demand anymore. Yeah, they say
Wow.
that they don't make any money off it, but it's like browse. Yeah, they do. They're not seeing it because like if you have a great selection, people go into browse and they're going to buy stuff that they weren't planning on buying.
So is it
But
not available through Barnes and Nobles or it's just not
you
on the
can.
shelves?
It's just not on the shelves. They
Okay.
won't put anything in the stores. Um, So I mean, and that's the cool thing is the indie stores will put your stuff like right on the shelves. Where Barnes and Noble is like if it's print on
Yeah,
demand, they're not going to
just
do
do
it.
a little convincing. That's what I'll do. I like when I first came out with the book, I'd go to all the indie stores and I try to convince them why they should carry my book.
It's and the cool thing is like the local bookstores around here, they're almost so surprised that there's a burgeoning indie author scene here. They're happy to put the stuff on the shelves because it's like
Oh, is
they're
there a scene there?
oh yeah the HWA West Virginia we've got let's see Carver Pike lives
I mean,
in
I interviewed
Somersville.
him for the podcast. Yeah.
He lives in Somersville, West Virginia. RJ Rolls lives pretty much down the road from me. Yeah, he runs Books of Horror. Yeah, he's pretty much like right down the road from me. Bridget Nelson did live in Huntington. London Blue lives in Charleston. Lindley Markham is over in like Logan County. I mean, yeah, there's West Virginia is a weird state because like people wouldn't think there's a great horror scene, but there's an incredible horror scene here.
Right.
Like Blitzkid is from Princeton, West Virginia. Like, and they're like the god of American horror punk. And yeah, they I used to see the lead singer over in his tattoo shop, like right across the mountain from me. So, I mean, there's a lot of it here. I mean, like one of the better horror stores just for horror, like toys and posters and movies is right across the mountain from me, a place called Spookables.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Like I lived all over because my dad's army, so like I've lived in like more metropolitan areas and like more like rural areas. But I noticed that like the slightly more rural areas have a lot more like unique stores and like uniqueness going on. Like if you're in metropolitan areas, like people just can't pay the rent unless you like put out what the mass wants.
Well, I mean, like a city like New York City, like God, it's changed so much since I lived there. But like nobody can pay the rent. I mean, that's why CB's went is because Hilly couldn't pay the rent anymore.
I heard like his contract was up after like 30 years or whatever.
The lease ran out, and they jacked him hard on
Oh, okay.
what they wanted for rent for the next lease was just like I love CB's. I've been to CB's many times, but
So
there's no way that that place was going to make what they wanted to charge for rent.
wow. Yeah, I remember. I mean, probably because like they were a cultural icon. It's like, oh, so you can pay us a lot of money, but I go to CB's all the time, and a lot of the shows weren't that packed. It's not
Oh
like
God,
they're making crazy money.
I remember 89, 90 seeing DI there, like
Yeah,
on a midweek show, and like you'd think DI, like it was a big band back then, and there couldn't have been more than 50 people in the place.
yeah, yeah.
You
I,
know,
I remember seeing a bunch of bands there, and just the draw. Like, unless you were like I don't even know who would like pack the place because I also lived in DC for 3 years. And I got the 930 Club, which is like the DC version of CBGB's.
yeah.
And I remember like I saw a Helmet there. When Helmet first came out before they even signed to a major label, and they packed the place. But by packing the place, that's 300 people.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's like I used to always joke about it when we played in a band. It's like, wow, we made hoagie money tonight.
Yeah,
Gas tanks full, 40 weights and hoagies. We did good.
yeah.
It's like the promoter would always come up to you, like if it was like some kid doing the show. It's like they're all like embarrassed. It's like, no, you don't understand. We get fuel in the gas tank, fuel in us. Everything's butter after that, man.
Yeah. Well, and then you see plenty of people like I saw. I don't know how many times I saw GBH there. It's like, well, they're probably only making enough money to like fly over all the way over the pond if they're doing like a whole chain. So we're part of this massive tour.
Well, I mean, even to pay for tours anymore for like smaller clubs, that's why so many bands play these festivals.
Okay.
Festival plays to get them over, so that's the biggest expense taken
Oh,
care
okay.
of,
Yeah.
and then they can afford to play a bunch of clubs. Because otherwise, like by the time that you get the whole band over, their instruments, visas, all that bullshit, it's like it's cost prohibitive. So what the bands do is they'll play something like Punk Rock Bowling, and then they'll do a tour off of that.
Okay.
But punk rock bowling was what paid for them to come over here in the first place.
That's kind of like where they also probably made like their money. They're guaranteeing money. You might not know probably at clubs where you're gonna make, right?
You never know. You never know because even a show that should be packed sometimes like falls flat on its face. I mean, like
Right.
I've done it from as a promoter too, and sometimes you're thinking, well, this is gonna, we're gonna pack the place tonight, and then it's like 100 people show up and like we are gonna have to have a discussion with the bands because we don't have any damned money, you know.
Well, I remember like one of my favorite bands that probably nobody knows of now was Hammerhead, and I saw Hammerhead at the it was a Black Cat Club in DC, and I thought they were amazing, and I was up front the whole time. I was like, "Oh, you guys are amazing!" And they're like, "Really? You like us?" Like there were 11 people there for the show.
I've seen some bands that are like now legendary, like just nobody showed shows. Like I saw Crackdown open up for Token Entry back at Club Pizzazz in Philly, like in '87, and there was nobody out there for Crackdown. And it's like now, if Crackdown would, well, now they can't, but like if they had done a reunion at any point, the place would have been packed to the gills. And it's like all these people like wanting to say they were there. And it's like, yeah, in '87, none of you all were here because I was there, and place was damn nigh empty. I remember after that show, I went up to the singer of Crackdown. I was like, dude, I am sorry. I have no idea what the hell happened here, but you guys were great.
Yeah, no, I remember I worked at Black Cat Club for a while, and sometimes being able to play, it'd be the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm sorry, man. Like you put in a great show. Sorry, you know.
I mean, it's like when we played the Lismar, like Ralphie boy who put it on, he was like all apologetic, and we're looking. We got like paid like $50, and I was like, dude, you don't understand. Gas tank's full. We just got 40s. We're happy as hell.
So, all right. So moving back to your author career, what made the transition? 'Cause you were in a band, I take it, for a
Yeah.
while, and then you transferred to being more of a full time writer.
Um. Well, it sort of goes by stages. I mean, like first, like I was in the Repressed, and I was in First Church of Hate, and then it got real problematic. To a band, unfortunately, means you have to have a full band, and getting people like all oars pulling in the same direction is a pain in the ass. It just is. So I went
And
from there to
it's
DJ.
probably not really financially rewarding unless you're like Guns N' Roses or something.
It's it's so much fun, but it's so much blast and bother. And then like
Yeah.
I went over to DJing, and then from there I started writing reviews. Like when Sparkplug magazine was out, coming out of LA, and that was actually a newsstand magazine. I was the lead reviewer for that, and it's like when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, like all of my teacher said, "Well, you're going to be an author one day." So I went,
Well,
"Oh, you said I'm going to be in a band one day." Just because I'm a natural born contrarian. It's like, yeah, tell me what I'm going to do. Fuck you, you know. And then as I got older, it's like, you know what? Okay, the contrarian stuff was nice, but let's see what if I can write more than just ad worthy copy for an Iggy and the Stooges album. Let's see if I can't do a little more than that.
you know what?
And
Just
then,
interrupt you real quick. You know what my guidance counselor told me? She said, "Get ready for a cure of pumping gas because that's all you ever do."
yeah, that's about what my guidance counselor said.
But go ahead.
But it's like, but yeah, I had creative writing teachers and like English teachers like, oh, you're going to be a writer. You're going to be a writer. I'm like, no, no, no. Once you've told me I'm going to do something as the voice of authority, I'm going to do the exact opposite of that. And then I just reached a point. It's like, you know what? I've been writing reviews for a while, and I thought I could do more with it. So, I mean, I started writing short stories. Those started getting published, and I started working on my first novel, I Never Eat Cheesesteak. I love horror comedy. It goes back to actually, I loved when Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy came out,
Great book. Great book. Yeah.
and it proved that like things you love could be made fun of.
Right.
Like there's jokes there. There's funny stuff there.
Well,
If
Doug
you just
Adams is so clever. Yeah.
well, that's that. I mean, that's a lot of the humor level I kind of aim at. I try to like cerebral, but while at the same time keeping it moving and keeping it fast paced. And it's like he came out with that, and then Terry Pratchett came out and did pretty much did the same thing to fantasy. And it's like, well, God, I mean, what genre has more tropes and can be more stuffy than horror? I love the genre, but there's tropes, there's rules,
Oh,
there's
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
and there's expectations, and it's like, well, if you can't make fun of that, pack it in, you know.
Right. Well, as long as it's like a clever riff on it. Like, I actually was not a big fan of Shaun of the Dead because I felt like it was too tongue in cheek, like too like we're clever, we're going to show you we're clever. But there's stuff like Evil Dead 2 is like one of my favorite movies ever. So it's like like I remember Sam Raimi was talking about he wanted to mix a little bit of the Three Stooges with horror because he
Yeah.
loved both. So that felt like a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like in the '70s, growing up, like two things hit me at the same time. It's like when I was a kid in Philly, like we had Creature Double Feature on 48 and Dr. Shock on 17. And so we had every Saturday two horror movies to choose from. Like, every Saturday. So it's like horror was like always like one of my big things. But then on top of it, in the late '70s, suddenly you get the stand up boom starts. Suddenly comedians like they go from like the Catskills to stadiums. Like the whole thing changed. Like suddenly there was Steve Martin, there was George Carlin, there was Richard Pryor, there was
Right.
all this great comedy. And then at the same time, some films started dropping, like, Young Frankenstein, Love at First Bite, and it's like start showing that there is some ground here. And that's like kind of what I said earlier. It's like you really got to love, if you're going to do cross genre like that, you got to love both. You gotta love the comedy, and you have to love the horror too, or it makes it you come across like, to horror fans, you come across as mean spirited, like you're making fun of something, and you're making fun of them if you don't love the horror. And to comedy fans, it's like, well, if you don't really love comedy, the jokes aren't funny. You just
I don't know. This is kind of a little bit off topic, but I remember I saw SLC Punk, with Matthew Lillard, and I was like, "That's making fun of punk rock," and I hated that movie because I felt like it wasn't like like it wasn't like Suburbia or like just like a dramatic, well told story. I felt like it was kind of like we'll grab all the hot topic stuff and like just like splash, bang, boom,
you'll
Matthew
grow out of
Lillard.
it. It's
Yeah.
like the whole message of that film was, you'll grow out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
was
just,
like, fuck this show. Yeah,
yeah, I hated that too. And that was why. Because the whole thing felt like, well, you may be this tough punk rocker now, but trust me, you'll grow out of it
yeah,
and
yeah.
get some dockers and move on with your life. And it's like, yeah, I'm 53 and no, I haven't.
Yeah, tell that to Jello Biafra.
Well, it's like, I mean, God, tell it to Charlie Harper.
Yeah.
I mean, God damn, the subs are doing another final tour, and he's well into his 70s now, and it's like, yeah, yeah. Tell Charlie that you're just going to grow out of it.
Yeah, I think it's very, very condescending. Although, at one point, like almost horror was almost like punk rock, and that like it was like that subgenre, like not looked, not respected, not given any consideration. And then you get like the giant like media corporation to come in and they go, wait a minute, there's a market for this, so we got to pitch it a certain way to make it sell.
The big houses have, especially like horror comedy, even more so than horror, have done more to hurt the genre than anything. Like they all know that they need somebody that does horror comedy because they've seen Christopher Moore sales, and they're very good, but they don't understand it. So they either hire writers to, they hand them a wacky scenario and say, write horror comedy, or they take soft horror, and there's nothing wrong with soft horror, by the way. But they take soft horror, and because there's like one smile of a joke in there somewhere, they go, oh, it's horror comedy. It's like, no, it would have to be funny to be horror comedy.
Well,
You
I've seen
know,
even some directors like they're talking to me like, "Oh yeah, well, I hate horror or I hate the concept of this, but it'll get me further in my career, so I'll do it." It's like that is not a good perspective.
oh, and the thing is you can see when somebody loves this stuff. I mean, like Del Toro, like
Yeah. Oh, he loves it. Have you seen Cabinet of Curiosities?
Yeah, I've seen some of that. The only thing I wish that hadn't happened was the third book in the strain. That series was going so well, and then the third book.
I liked 1 through 3. I saw the TV show. I didn't see the comic book, but 1 through 3 was awesome. And then I know that it got like they got cut, so they're supposed to do like a certain number of episodes, but they're told instead of 5, you can only do 4. So when the 4th came out, it's like, all right, so we'll jump to 6 years later and wrap everything up. And I thought that ruined it. I was like, it was so good.
Well, no, the book is the same way. The book series, the first 2 books are great. I mean, they're just top notch, and the third one is just got to mosey on around here now, so we're just going to wrap this all up.
Sorry. Don't tell me that.
Yeah, well, it's not the first. Like, I stopped reading Dean Koontz altogether because I'm still mad about the third Frankenstein book. First 2 books are great, and then 400-page book I have to suffer through just because at this point I'm invested to the point I have to know how it ends. But the book is awful, and it's just page, and it's like, well, Kuntz can write some great stuff, yes, but he can also write the third book in the Frankenstein series. So
also, it's like the actor that's like an amazing actor, and then does like Stepfather or whatever,
And it's just like I know what he's capable of, and there's other authors, and I'm just going to read their stuff and leave him be. I've read Intensity, I've read Odd Thomas, I read his best stuff. I don't need to take that risk.
Right. No, I understand. Like I read a bunch of like early Stephen King, like Christine, Carrie, and Firestarter, and then I read Thinner, and I was like, all right, I'm done. And I've heard he's done some great stuff since then, but I'm like, I was done.
I liked Cell. A lot of people didn't, but I thought Cell had a real life fear to work with, and I thought that made it pop a little bit better because it was something that's almost a reasonable fear about, like the cell phones that we have glued to our ears every day, all day, turning on us. So it was nice, solid. It's a shorter book too, so because like when King. If you're borderline on a book, like it could be you kind of like it, you're not sure, but then like the author drones for 100 pages, well, that kicks it right over into hate real quickly.
Well, I think Stephen King, like his strength is like his realism, like they're realistic characters who believe the scenario, but then sometimes he just goes on and on and on. You're like, man, come on, you need a better editor. You need somebody to like give you some feedback. I know you're big now, but.
Well, that's why I like Robert McCammon. He's got he has
like Swan Song. You were Swan Song, right?
Yeah, he was Swan Song, Usher's Passing, Mystery Walk. He has an uncanny ability to know when to shut up. Like, no, it's rarer than you think. You either most.
No, I believe you. I believe you 100%. Like I think some of the people that could tell a tight story, are gone. Like a lot of the like the guy who wrote I Am Legend. I mean, that's a
Robert
tight
Matheson.
Story. Oh yeah, he's amazing. Everything.
Matheson,
Hell House, Stir of Echoes. Yeah,
and as a screenwriter, I mean, the stuff he did with Dan Curtis in the early '70s. I mean, he did the screenplay for Night Stalker. I mean, Matheson did a lot of the best screenplays. Like him and Dan Curtis, their ability to take good horror and put it on TV was just that was beyond it what anybody else was doing.
What was that Twilight Zone episode? It's like Terror at 10,000 feet or whatever. It has like the golem on the wing of a plane. Yeah,
with Shatner.
Yeah, that was all. I read the story too. It's awesome.
No, Matheson and Dan Curtis understood how to make horror work on a small screen. Right. And like probably better than anybody, except maybe Tobe Hooper, because his adaptation of Salem's Lot is still.
I think there's early Tobe Hooper and there's later Tobe Hooper.
Well, Hooper started getting garbage material.
Yeah,
like
I've seen some horrible movies from him. Like, how bad could this be? And I watched it, I was like, that was pretty fucking bad.
Like he made 3 really good films with Cannon, but they did. For Canon Pictures and a 3-picture deal after Poltergeist. And they're good films. The problem is they didn't do well in the theater. So they cut him loose. His name became Poison. Next thing you know, he's working on TV. He's getting like the Mangler. And
You
it's
see
like
Mortician or
I
Mortuary?
yeah, I've
Mortuary
not.
is horrible.
It's like he ended up getting really bad material. He ended up getting like no budget, and so like it was just it, it makes you wonder like if he had just made one commercially viable film for Canon instead of just like doing the films he wanted to do, if maybe his whole career wouldn't have been different. Because I mean, up to Invaders of Mars, he's hotter than a rolling die. It's like even his low budget films like Funhouse and Eaten Alive are amazing. You've got Chainsaw, you've got Salem's Lot, you've got Poltergeist. He does Life Force. Invaders from Mars is just this really cool like homage film. He's got all these great films, and then Cannon cuts him loose, pissed off because he's cost him money, and his name becomes mud. And
It's funny. It's like very much, what have you done for us lately? It doesn't matter how good you are. It's what have you done for us lately?
it's for a while him and Carpenter were running neck and neck, and then right after Cannon cut him loose because they were pissed about losing money, everything after that's
See,
really
even Carpenter, his like lower budget stuff, I love. Like They Live, that's a great fucking movie.
see, that's the thing. It's also the scripts you get because I mean, like okay, Tale of Two Hooper films. You've got Salem's Lot on one side, which is also one of King's best books, and you've got another King, The Mangler, which is one of the stupidest ideas King ever came up with. And it's like, well, yeah, of course the quality is going to go drop a little bit. Look at the source
Even was
material.
it what was that Stephen King one? The movie he directed himself with like the like where machinery starts killing you.
Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, horrible, horrible.
I have this weird soft spot in this for that film. I do. I have this. I think it's because like I love a glorious train wreck. Like just like there's some part of me that just enjoys watching something crash and burn in magnificent form, and Maximum Overdrive is one of those. It's like, yeah, give the cokehead who hasn't slept in a week and a half a few $1 million and tell him to make a film he's never directed before. What could possibly go wrong here?
Right. Of course. Yeah. And have ACDC do the soundtrack and
it's
like they're
funny.
just pumping itself, throwing itself in them. It's like it didn't work at all. Not even close.
I'm actually friends with J. Patrick Miller, who played the gas station attendant in that, and so like I have such a soft spot for it because like I'm friends with Pat, and I really do. I just love watching something crash and burn that like seemed like a good idea at the time, but was actually a terrible idea. I think
he was in the phase of his career where it's like, you're the master. You can't do anything bad.
I think King actually, I think to a degree, he got made by who directed his films. Look at the laundry list of his first films is like a who's who of horror. He has John Carpenter doing Christine, Brian De Palma does Carrie.
The most amazing movies. Yeah.
Toby Hooper does Salem's Lot. You have Kubrick does The Shining. I mean, he
hates The Shining, which is actually my favorite movie of all time.
It's funny. I've read the book, and it infuriates King fans when I say this, but I think Kubrick did him a lot of favors because you can cut 100 pages out of that book easily. It's just like write the sentence. He is a dry drunk who has issues with his temper. She is weak-willed and has mommy issues. There, that's 150 pages of Salem's Lot. I mean, of The Shining.
And Kubrick is a fucking master.
The only problem I have versus the book with his version of The Shining is they didn't need to kill Catman Scruthers. They didn't need to kill Scatman. And on top of it, it's bugged me since I was a kid because that was Hong Kong Phooey. They just killed Hong Kong Phooey. God damn it! I mean that you killing my childhood, man.
Well, you can't always get what you Life is disappointing. If I learn one thing in life, it always lets you down. You know, like I tell people when they tattoo, and if they say this hurts, I'm like, everything in life hurts. I should know. I was married.
Thankfully, I have a wife with a hell of a sense of humor, and she's one to put up with me. She's
But
put up with my crap for a long time, and God bless her for it.
well, we didn't get divorced. My wife actually died in a hit and run, but it's like she was straight from Colombia and she had that Colombian temper. So sometimes she'd blow up and would have these like knockdown, drag out fights. Like she tried to hit me with the car one time. And the next day it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. But hey, whatever. It's life.
I don't think I've ever. No, wait, I have had somebody try to hit me with a car once. I lie. And the thing is I got in trouble with the law for it.
Really? Yeah. I had the cops I was in Northern Virginia, like Fairfax, Virginia, in the '90s. I had the cops put so many fake charges against me. I mean, I had a mohawk. I looked like a British punk rocker, and they just like. I remember I smoked a cigarette. I got arson charges. like anything they can fucking do.
Yeah, no, I was rolling out in this town like Pleasant Valley, Pennsylvania, and it created my firm belief that the more trees there are, the worse it was back in the '80s. If you were a punker in the '80s, man, it's like if you saw trees, you were in some shit. And this guy swerved to hit me and my buddy. We are just hiking down the road.
That happened, yeah.
And I flipped him off. Son of a bitch goes to the cops that I flipped him off.
How is that even illegal?
I got hit with disorderly conduct for that.
Really?
Yeah. It cost me $125 to flip off a guy who almost ran me down.
The guy like some like douchebag redneck went like 4-wheeling, so he had a Bronco too. It's all covered in mud, so it's running like Misfits and DK on the side, and so we called them narcs, so the school security. So I remember the school security said, "Oh well, you keyed his car. I get charged with vandalism. I had to pay fines for that. I did like they fingerprinted me at the community. Yeah, wasn't good."
That's a funny thing. It's like when I hear like guys bitching and moaning about cancel culture, it's like, nah,
you have no idea how it was back in the day.
Yeah,
I always sound like an old man, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember Dead Kennedys getting arrested. That kid who had the comic in Florida going to jail. The guy who did Boiled Angel, he went to jail.
I remember that. Yeah, I'm old, but I remember that. Yeah,
Guar got arrested repeatedly. You know, I mean, like, it's like, no, cancel culture involves cuffs. It doesn't involve mean girl tweets on Twitter.
True. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, I remember Type 2 Live crew getting in trouble. I remember like
they got arrested.
All these people get in trouble for like what would be nothing now, and now people are like, "Oh man, you gave me a mean look." Like, dude, fucking toughen up. Sorry, that's my rant. But all right, man. So I want to cut this off. I don't want this to go too long. Do you have anything else you want to promote? Do you want to tell people something they should check out?
Well, D&T Publishing coming up, and it'll be available from Godless and Amazon at the end of the month. Curse of the Werepoodle, and early next year from Saint Rooster, short story collection, mostly horror, called Droplets. And oh yeah, this is very, very weird, but the Haunted United States coming from Macmillan, Big House.
Wow, yeah.
I've got a short story in there. It's basically short stories, middle grade short stories from all over the country, for like, basically horror stories from every state. And I got to do West Virginia. And it's so weird that I got like a middle grade story coming out on one of the majors, but that comes out in July.
Okay, awesome. Do you have what are your social media contacts and what are you on?
Okay, I'm gonna actually spell my last name, and actually once I spell my last name, trust me, I'm what comes up. It's spelled Lubaczewski, Paul, and there's webpage, there's Amazon page, Facebook. I was on Twitter, but Twitter's a dumpster fire now. So,
Well, it's X now, so that's Twitter.
yeah, it's an ex social media platform, is what it is. But I am on Blue Sky and I'm on Instagram.
Okay. You're not on TikTok. You don't do these videos.
I'm on TikTok, but I just can't make myself do it. I did a few book reviews.
Look at Just Strange videos. He has some, hilarious videos on there.
I just can't, the whole doing a video, and it's like I just can't bring myself to do it. And it's like I think I got like 5 or 6 videos on TikTok, and that's as far as I've ever been able to get.
I think you need the tutu, and then people will watch. Yeah.
But I also have run the A Touch of Evil page on YouTube.
Okay.
It's old horror movies basically.
Okay. Awesome. So, Touch of Evil is like what is it? It's like a program, a regular program put out.
No, it's just the films themselves. It used to be a Facebook page. I was the owner of that, and I was one of the editors at Long Live the Horror, and Facebook nuked us both within a week.
Good.
I mean, Long Live the Horror had like 250,000 followers, wiped us out in a week, barely gave us an explanation, and the explanation was not worth wiping out a page that was that popular.
Is it media lords? What can you do? Yeah, somebody hacked my Instagram page. I had like 17,000 followers. Somebody hacked it, sold it, and there's like some 17-year-old girl just posting pictures of herself. And I remember I tried for like a week and a half to get it back, and I just gave it up.
Yeah, pretty much so. Like they wouldn't even answer our emails. Like we tried to contact for both Long Live and A Touch of Evil getting nuked, and they wouldn't get back to us at all. And A Touch of Evil, they hit me with like 6 strikes for one post that wasn't against their rules, and they gave me like 6 strikes for it. And it's like, so the next strike was it. That was the end of the page. I
remember on Amazon I put up a meme, and it's like every girl loves getting swept off her feet until she ends up in the trunk of a car. It's obviously a joke, but I got banned for a week for that.
Amazon, God, I feel bad. That's actually
not Amazon, Facebook, yeah.
But yeah, no, speaking of Amazon, that's why Godless is so important. And I will support the hell out of Godless, because for extreme horror authors, like, you never know when Amazon's just going to go, nope, we're not going to let you publish it on our site. Right. And thank God they got somewhere like Godless to go to, that so they don't have to go editing
their deal with that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, they can just, okay, well, fine. You don't want it? I'm putting it on Godless. You can suck on that.
Yeah, I love he's a little hit or miss to me, but I love what Elon Musk said when they were asking him about advertising. He's like, go fuck yourself. Can I be more clear about this? Go fuck yourself. I just like the attitude. I'm not even making these statements about who's right and who's wrong and whatever.
It's an interesting. I just had this conversation last night with my son. It's an interesting thing, like when you've got to I don't think it's 100% gotten through to Elon. Dude, you're running a company. There's a difference between when you run a company and you're responsible for all these other people, and when you yourself are doing stuff. And it's like, I think that's one of the nice things about being a writer or in a band or something. You have the freedom to just go, you know what, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Know who gets hurt? Me. So, if you don't like it, well, I said go fuck yourself.
Right. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. I know it took a little while to set it up, but I'm glad you did it. Do you have anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay, awesome, man. Again, thank you, and I'm going to call with that.